welcome to Crypto Crazy. I'm Cal, and today I'm going to talk about Bitcoin and the price predictions as well. I spoke about Ether yesterday, and if you haven't seen that video yet, do go back and have a watch. I think you'll find it quite interesting. And today it's going to be Bitcoin and some of the price predictions out there, and generally what you should really keep an eye on in terms of what could happen and where that price could end up going. As we can see today, it's sitting around 40,000 USD, and that's quite a considerable increase from what it was just 3 weeks ago when it was around about 20,000. And as we can see, over the last 3 months, it's gone up a considerable amount. And the reason behind this is, as people say, a lot of the institutional money. If we have a look at some of the price predictions first, we've got the Winklevoss twins, who believe that it can go up 30 times, and that was during an interview they had when the price was at 19,000. So they believe it can be around the region of 570,000 per Bitcoin, which is an astonishing amount. And even the likes of JP Morgan, who once upon a time said not to even invest within Bitcoin, are now given a prediction of 146,000, which is again a considerable amount considering where the price is at the moment. And what we can see here is some people are actually predicting it might go the other way. So we have an article here that says an analyst who correctly predicted that the Bitcoin price would go up to 40,000 is now believing that a 50% collapse could come next. So I just want to touch upon that. As I mentioned yesterday as well in my Ether video, and I'll say it again today, no one can really predict where the movement will be. So the price could consolidate and the price could end up going down for a little while before going back up. I think 50% is quite a high amount, but in the world of cryptocurrency, you really don't know. So the high prices that we're seeing now, the increase that we're seeing over the last 3 months, let's just have a look at, see where some of that money is coming from. And what you may have heard is that institutional money is now within Bitcoin. It's been the year of institutional money coming in, especially to the latter part of 2020. Here we have an article looking at MicroStrategy, and the CEO, Michael Saylor, mentioned how he had invested over 70,000 Bitcoins. So it's into over 70,000 Bitcoins, which gives a value of over 1.5 billion, which is a considerable amount. And he was even on CNBC talking about how 650 million of a debt issue was fully included within that Bitcoin investment. So clearly he believes in it very much. And not only with MicroStrategy, we have Square, we have Cyberpunk Holdings, and many other funds and institutions putting their money and believing in Bitcoin. Here you've noticed that PayPal, they were the real changers, I think, in terms of overall adoption. They allow you to buy, to sell, to hold, and that was in October. And as you can see, when this was happening, since then, people have been recognizing there is more adoption, there is more acceptance with institutions of having Bitcoin as something that you can buy and sell through their platforms. And just having a look here, we have an article with the FT as well, talking about how 2020, certainly the end of 2020, was the year that Bitcoin went institutional. And just here you'll see that a UK-based asset manager mentioned that they had 2.7% of their firm's AUM invested in Bitcoin. And that is no small asset firm. That puts their total asset under management over £20 billion. And for them to have that confidence in Bitcoin is quite considerable. And what you'll see is that more and more these funds will begin to put money into Bitcoin. One other article that I want to touch upon is here, where it talks about how experts believe that the same crash of 2017 won't happen again. Now, back in 2017, we saw quite a considerable crash where the highs were pretty much around 20,000 at the beginning of 2018, and by the end, it had dropped to around about the 3,000 mark, which saw a considerable amount of value being wiped off. Now, people are saying that that won't happen again because, as mentioned, a lot of the institutional money, the money that isn't so quick to come out when the price comes down, is now invested into Bitcoin. However, I do want to just let you know that when markets do crash, when things do go bad, then money does come out, even sometimes with institutions. We can see earlier in the year when we did have the crash due to the pandemic, where the value of the S&P 500 lost probably around about a third of its value. We'll see, if I just take this up to the year, a similar sort of thing happened. So in February, it was about 10,000, and it ended up losing probably a little bit more than nearly half of its value, really, about 40%. Obviously, back then, the institutional money that is in there now wasn't in there, but nevertheless, people still do sell assets when there is a crash. And if anything like that does happen in 2021 due to the pandemic or other reasons, there's no reason why Bitcoin can't also lose its value. And with individuals like you and I who would sell as retail customers, buyers of Bitcoin, institutions, funds do also make decisions to move money from anywhere where they believe more value would be lost and to put it into, for example, gold, where they believe during those harder times the value will increase. So that is something to bear in mind. I've seen articles out there saying that if the markets were to crash, people will move to Bitcoin and have it as a store of value. I don't think that's necessarily true. Yes, it would store value. However, it doesn't have the same effect as gold does, really, in terms of investment, because it's quite volatile still at the moment. It does allow people to quickly move their money out and move it into another asset. I also just want to kind of scroll down here, and they talk about the reasons as to why they believe it won't be a case of the price crashing or going down and it continue to go up. Fear of missing out. Um, as we can see, always when there are more articles about it, people generally see that the value of Bitcoin's going up and they want to invest more into it. More people want to get into it as well. So that certainly be something that is driving the price. The demand for inflation hedges, and that just generally means that where money is losing its value, where countries have needed to print it due to the pandemic, Bitcoin won't be losing its value. And as you can see, it's an alternative to cash, but then also gold, and there are other hedge assets as well. So bear in mind, Bitcoin isn't the only investment, hedge investment to cash, especially in these times. And the third point is increase legitimacy. And I think that's a valid point. With more companies, like we saw with PayPal, Square, more funds, as I've mentioned, buying into it, it really does allow people to say see that this is more of a legitimate investment. So certainly that will be something that people will be looking to invest in as a result. So I think coming back to the price, we do have some very, very, I guess, um, optimistic prices as we see there, and even JP Morgan. One thing to consider, as I mentioned, that doesn't mean that the price can't go down, especially if there's a crash, especially if there's consolidation, especially if people do get panicked as well. And just because there are articles mentioning that funds are now within it doesn't mean that they can't move around what they are invested into. I do also think, as one of the other articles mentioned there, that there could be a pullback. I don't think it would be 50%, but there would be. And I think what it is good to keep in mind is to have a look and see what the news is saying. I think some of these crazy predictions, whether they are too high and too low, are probably not a good indication to go by. I think it's a good idea to see what's actually happening out there, and as a result, make those decisions accordingly. If you've been invested into Bitcoin when it was, around the 10,000 mark, and now you're at 40, I mean, you may choose to take some profits. No one ever got burnt by taking some profits. However, if prices are going down and that there are legitimate reasons as to why that's happening, and there are still these price predictions that are extremely high, then I think it's best to take a sensible approach and actually see what is going on in the market. I think there's a lot of people out there who are hyping. And I think another thing that isn't quite well explained sometimes in these articles, with JP Morgan talking about 146,000 value of Bitcoin in the long term, and that could potentially mean even in the next 10 years, where Bitcoin has exploded over the last 10 years to the value that it is now, 40,000. JP Morgan's models could be that in the next 10 years is 146,000. So that's not always explained in these articles in terms of the time frame. It doesn't also take into account what the lows will be and how long will those lows will be for, and why those you could have those lows as well in that time period. And sometimes the models are incorrect. Like I said, JP Morgan not too long ago was saying it had no value and it shouldn't be invested in. So things do change quite drastically. But yeah, that's my take on Bitcoin. Hopefully you find that useful. Please do subscribe if you found that useful. Give it a thumbs up, a comment below as well. It does help the channel. As you can see, just starting this new channel in the new year now as well. And I'll bring you another video tomorrow. I'll be generally talking about news, my views, also any new coins that are coming to the market as well. I do believe that the value is going to be in the bigger projects in this bull run, especially to start off with, where institutions are investing in coins that have shown that they are more reliable, that they have more years experience behind them. But that doesn't mean that eventually people will start moving into investing into other coins as well. So certainly we'll be bringing you that as well. But please do subscribe if you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.